Alright, cool.
No, came out before she.
I just get annoyed when I was like,
That's fine.
Yeah,
I realize it's eight like that. Like,
Yeah, it's in the 60s.
Doesn't matter. It's a fun action movie.
how
Yeah,
many
we're great
dates
off.
and years did they tell us, and they remember that individual.
Jesus.
Yeah, moving away
You should
from
have gone last
embracing.
week.
Yeah.
No one is gonna
Yeah.
talk to this.
Alright. 3, 2, 1, go. Hey everybody. Noby Noby Boy is not a game. This was a quote by Anthony Birch, a reviewer for the video game website Destructoid. The category of being a game can be problematic because adherence to strict standards breeds elitism in the games community. If gamers accept only one narrow view to be acceptable, then the whole industry remains stagnant and regressive. I propose games are meaningful works of art and platforms for social issues. One designer who would see the definition of what a game is as irrelevant is Keita Takahashi. When Takahashi was making his hit Katamari Damacy, he thought too many games were original, or unoriginal. The act of defining something as not being a game is exclusionary when reviewers on popular video game websites dismiss certain games that stray from the mainstream. Gamers define what a game is through their buying habits and their voices online. So here we have instances of reviewers who negatively review a game with quotes like, "There's not much else to do in the game." Looking at the overview on a website called Giant Bomb, the point of Noby Noby Boy is to explore and find things to do. Noby Noby Boy is an example of a game that is different from any other game. That's one of the best things about games. They can offer new ideas and experiences. This game is described as a game where you can control a strange creature named Boy, exploring surreal, randomly generated worlds, featuring a plethora of objects that are animal, vegetable, and mineral. There's no enemies, time limits, or immediate goals or missions. Boy has 2 sets of legs which are controlled independently with the left and right analog sticks of the PlayStation controller. Get out of the way. The objective is purely to have fun, exploring the weird surroundings, interact with things, and control the character in any strange way you see fit. The goals become whatever the players see and set for themselves. What makes Noby Boy a game is the designed system, conflict through indirect competition or cooperation, rules and quantifiable outcomes, which are components outlined in rules of play by Salem. The first component, which is the system, defines Noby Noby Boy to be a creature with limits, since he can only behave the way Keita Takahashi has assigned him to. Conflict comes in an indirect form when the player decides to compete with other players' stretching rankings, although that's completely optional. The rules of how to stretch Noby Noby Boy are discerned at the beginning of the game, in a tutorial, and then the players left on their own. There's no high score boss battles to encounter. However, every time the player stretches Noby Noby Boy, they are contributing to the larger fabric of the overall game experience. If the goal of successful game design is meaningful play, then Takahashi has made a successfully designed game. In 2011, players around the world already stretched Boy enough to reach another character, Girl, to a planet Jupiter. Salem writes game design is the process by which a game designer creates a game from which meaningful play emerges. Takahashi created his own art style and his own vision of reaching the stars and planets. This is a game capable of reaching universal appeal. In Rules of Play, Salem discusses rhetoric as being an effective method of using games for information. The survivor horror game series, Silent Hill, brought critical acclaim for its gloomy atmosphere and psychological themes. According to a Duke University Press article titled "The Gendered Gameplay of Silent Hill," the Silent Hill series is notable because it's a commercial franchise that works within generic and industrial constraints, yet manages to challenge traditional models of masculinity and their implication in conventions of video game characterization. The creature design in Silent Hill 2, for example, recalls discussion of gendered imagery in horror films. Creatures embody a kind of monstrous femininity, recurring throughout both games and series. Mannequins, bubblehead nurses, which are shuffling automatons that patrol through the hospital levels, lying figures, which are creatures straitjacketed in embryonic sacs. These are all Silent Hill figures that can be seen as grotesque reflections on female sexuality and reproduction. I will skip to Pyramid Head. He's pretty famous, a monstrous masculinity, if you will. He's featured in the game. He carries that big phallic weapon around. Play exists in a psychotic zone constructed from the wife killer's guilty conscience, a post-suicide hallucination, nightmarishly combining the main character James's most intimate and distressing memories. The game world consequently expresses without endorsing James's ambivalent attitude towards Mary, his wife, and women in general. This series proves an interesting, albeit atypical, case study, indicative of the richness and ambiguity of a game franchise unusual among video game titles in many respects. My last point is that in a report from the publication Media Psychology, researchers found that stereotypical Asian and Black characters were overrepresented in E-rated games. As a result, then they suggest that research must examine the implied possibility that something as simple as increasing the frequency of admirable Black characters in games and other media could lead to significant reductions in automatic pro-white bias and associated anti-Black bias. Overall, games have secured a place in the discourses of art and social issues. During this relatively nascent stage in games history, there's already academic literature reaching new heights of discussion. When critics try to limit the definition of what a game truly is, they do a disservice to where games can go and what games can do. Thank you.